Welcome, everybody. My name is Carole Lynn Grant, and I am the producer and director of The Quest, a metaphysical journey. And this is a program that teaches us and encourages us to use all our intuitive skills in a practical world. And my host today, Bruce Starr, is the host of The Quest, which invites everybody on a journey. And I would like to go on a journey with you, Bruce, and find out about you. So give me a little background and then what you like to do best.
Well, thank you very much, Carol, for giving me this opportunity. You know, I love doing the quest with Carole Lynn Grant. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn from you and to also get to express some of the knowledge that I've gathered over the last several years. You know, in 1975, I don't want to date myself too much, is the year that I give myself credit for starting being on my spiritual path. And I was living in Boston at the time, and I had an interesting thing happen. I was happened to be in Florida at the time, and I started reading an astrology column by a man named Sidney Omar. And it was the craziest thing because every time I would come home and read the evening news with Sidney Omar and his astrology column, he would say exactly what happened. And I said, what is this? What is this astrology stuff? Does this stuff really work? So when I got home, I called the New England Astrological Society and I said, I want to get an astrology reading with Sidney Omar. And they said, well, where do you live? I said, Watertown, Massachusetts. And they said, Watertown. Well, that's where the president of the New England Astrological Society lives. I said, oh, no kidding. And they asked me what street I lived on, and they told me what street she lived on, and she lived a half a block away. So I was able to knock on her door, and that's when my quest for spiritual knowledge and for higher knowledge and energy began. And then years later, because my relationships in my personal relationships, my romantic relationships, were not working out like I wanted them to. I had plenty of opportunities to meet people, but for some reason, one reason or another, they weren't working out. And I started saying to myself, I have to find out what in tarnation is going on out there with them that my relationships aren't working so great. And that's when astrology really kicked in because it allowed me to learn about others and how I interacted with them. Astrology is great that way. And I remember my astrologer, I complained to her one day and I said, you know, when I walk into a room, it seems like half the people really like me and the other people, half the people really hate me. And I don't even have to say anything, right? So she said, you have Pluto in the first house, and it's a very powerful place to have Pluto. And when you walk into a room, people can feel your energy, and they're either threatened by it or they're excited by it. So that really turned it around for me because I was able to understand how astrology works personally firsthand. And I started getting into studying relationships. I actually studied the Course in Miracles with Marianne Williamson, who happens to be running for president right now. I studied with Michael Beckwith out in Los Angeles at the Agape International Church and learned a lot from him. And he's quite a guy. He was in The Secret. And I just studied with some of the best people. Dr. Pat Allen is one of the top relationship experts in the whole world. And she wrote a little something in one of my books that I wrote, which was really nice. She was definitely my relationship mentor. She would come to Hollywood once a month and speak to all the lovelorn producers and directors and actors and actresses who were living the life that they chose career-wise, but were miserable, alone, and lonely, and didn't understand why romantically. And I started learning some incredible things from her about why so many people were alone and lonely and miserable. And I learned really a lot from her. And I started taking that. And then one day I took that information that I was learning all these years and I went on America Online, 1993, which hardly anyone was on. There might have been 300,000 people in the whole country on America Online at the time. And a friend of mine, a producer friend of mine, said, if you open up a room, people will come in and you can talk to them and you get a following. I said, oh, okay. So one night I tried it. I sat in a room all by myself called Relationship Coaching. I sat there and sat there and sat there for like 20 minutes or a half an hour. I said, what an idiot you are. You're sitting in this room, nobody's coming in, and oh, someone came into the room. It was like, oh, oh, now I have to kind of talk with them. And that was the start of over 6,000 detailed, intimate, recorded conversations with people from around the country. And I thought I knew a lot about relationships, but they taught me things about relationships I never realized before. So maybe 15 years later, I wrote a book called Body Traders: How to Transform Back from Player to Lover. Now, what does body traders mean? Now it's that people could get scared about that word. But body traders to me meant once you trade what you have as a male, let's say stereotypically, don't get mad at me, ladies. Stereotypically, I have some money and I can afford to go anywhere and do anything, and I can take a wife and pay for her, and we can live comfortably. Uh, I'll trade that if I can find a female who has what I want: sexuality, looks, whatever it is. And if she gives me what she has, I'll give her what I have. And I call that body trading. So it took me many years to write that book. It's now published. And then over the years, I wrote another book because I'm a teacher. And many times I teach kids who are in fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grades. And I realized how many of them are lost. They're really lost. They grew up with one parent families, and they simply don't have the knowledge that I had growing up, because I had a mother, I had a father, and I had two sisters. And I was coached, well coached by literally three mothers, two older sisters, and a mom. And I had the knowledge of what it took to be respectful to females. But do kids have that information now? There's statistically, there's only one dad in the family. Too much of a statistic, 75%, 60%, whatever it is. And then the mother, of course, has to go out and work. So she's not there for the child. And so I wrote a book about an imaginary young lady who's 13 years old. And her only release of frustrations is to go to a park. And one day she meets an older man at a park, kind of like how I would be. And nothing bad ever happens, because over a period of weeks and months, they start talking to each other. And slowly she started asking him questions about his life. And then she started asking him questions about her life. And the book is about all the questions that this young girl, 13, 14, then 15, then 16, then 17, asked this man about how to have a good relationship. So it's literally a manual for any teenager who wants to know what's right from what's wrong in relationships. And I first called it Her Teenage Love Coach. And I'm thinking about maybe changing the name, but that's the second published book. I believe both of these books are eventually going to help millions and millions of people, especially this one, a manual for young people that just don't have the information they need to stay out of trouble. And I'm very proud of this book. And thank you for asking me about my background, Carol. I appreciate it.
But you've done many things, Bruce. When I looked into your background, um, I read that you were the voice of the Caribbean on radio for so many years, and that nation was taken over, and you rescued a baby and brought the baby girl, 3 weeks old, I think, who was in the hospital, out of the Caribbean. Tell us some of your adventures, the quest in your life.
Well, that was really something. My wife took a trip to an island, a tropical island in the Western Caribbean, by herself with some friends. And when she came back, she said, "Honey, we weren't married yet. Said, I'm going back to this paradise with or without you. I really want you to come. I really want you to come with me, of course, but this is paradise. I want to live in this place." So, I was struggling in Los Angeles at the time. And this was when living in Los Angeles was great. It wasn't any of the problems that they're having now. But I was struggling because I found out really Los Angeles and show business isn't cut out for me. As much as I really wanted it to be, it's not cut out for me. And I found out now, years and years later, that if I had fallen for some of the traps that people fall for out in show business, that I could be in trouble with the many, many people who are in trouble now. So, in a way, I'm thrilled that I wasn't successful out there, but I was kind of ready for a change. And I always wondered in the back of my mind, what would it be like to live on a tropical island in the Western Caribbean? My goodness, I can only imagine what that must be like. And part of me wanted to know. So, me and my wife, we packed up everything, sold everything in a garage sale, 4 garage sales, and we moved to this tropical island. Imagine being able to train your mind with the same precision you train your body. The Awaken Mind headset offers personalized audio programs that can help enhance your concentration, reduce stress, and optimize recovery times. It's like having a personal mental coach available anytime you need to dial in your focus or unwind after an intense session. I believe that this tool can be a valuable addition to your training arsenal, giving you the mental sharpness and relaxation needed for those critical moments when games are won or lost. If you're interested in learning more about how this headset can be integrated into your routine for peak performance, contact me at the number below. I'd like to share more about how this technology can support your journey to the top. I quickly found out that there was no English speaking radio and certainly no television. There was a station that played country music for the English speaking people, but there was thousands of English speaking people, and the signal reached the whole entire Western Caribbean. So I saw an opportunity to bring my radio background to this whole region that needed it. To give you an example, if there was a hurricane coming, the Spanish people would know about it because the Spanish radio would be talking about it for days, but the English speaking people wouldn't know about it. So I saw definitely an important role that I could play by becoming the English voice for the Western Caribbean, and that's what I was nicknamed. Roatan Bruce was my name, and I was nicknamed the Larry King of the Western Caribbean because I was the first and only English-speaking talk show host and producer ever that they had in the Western Caribbean. And it was that way for 9 years. So I really brought music. I interviewed 4 Honduran presidents. It was amazing. Even the ones that didn't speak English. I had interpreters right next to me, 4 presidents, and hundreds of congressmen and mayors and governors. And I truly brought the communities together. One of the things I was most proud of was when I first got there, Carol, the the police, the Spanish police, were not very nice to people, and people were afraid of them. And they'd drive on the road, there'd be roadblocks, and these police would take their IDs from them and force them to go to the police station. It was a scary thing because they didn't speak English, and my people didn't speak Spanish. It was very scary. And I said to myself, as a radio guy, I said, I've got to bridge the gap between the Spanish police and the English speaking people, because if I don't, it's never going to expand as a tourist destination. So the policeman, the head policeman who was there, he left. I didn't even know they changed around. The new one came, and he was very open to meeting me and getting to know me. And I started, which was really fantastic, we started a very close connection. And from that moment on, and the people in Rotan wouldn't know this. To this day, they wouldn't know this. But I brought the police to the people, the English speaking people. And almost immediately, the police were no longer a threat, and everything was much friendlier. And the police would wave and say hello to the English speaking people and the tourists. So one of the greatest things I've ever done was to bridge the gap between, and you wouldn't know this, Carol, I never talked to you about this, bridge the gap between the Spanish and the Spanish police, the commissarios, and the English speaking people and the tourists. So now, while we were there, we got a call from a hospital, and they said there was a young girl dying in the hospital. She was 2 months premature and only 3 pounds. And they said, would you be willing to see if you can do something with her, save her life? We said, sure. Well, we'd had a success the year before with a boy who's now thriving. As a matter of fact, he's a big football player in the United States. So uh, we said, sure. So for the next month, me and my group of 4, we held this young girl who we called Baby K. We held this young girl, fed her, uh, kissed her, and just was with her every moment for a whole month. And of course, when you're getting love like that, Carol, you start coming around. And she did. And as soon as she got to be about 6 or 7 pounds, we gave her back to her mom. But her mom wasn't taking care of her. And the mom was told things about her and about the baby that made it very difficult. And she asked us if we would adopt the baby. So, I mean, we didn't adopt the baby right away, but we took her and we did the best we could to her. But I didn't. The one quick story. One time when we went to see the mother and baby K, we drove up this dirt hill, big, tall, big dirt hill. If it was any rain, there's no way anybody could get up that dirt hill by vehicle. And we went to the house where she was living, and it was maybe a 10 by 10 white cement house with no floor, and there were 10 kids running around with no shoes.
Yeah.
And Kenya would have been the 11th. So the mom said, please take her, because she wanted something better for her daughter. And we said, listen, we'd be glad to. So years later, it took years to officially adopt her. We had a lot of difficulty getting her back to the United States. When other people were coming in here, just as they are now illegally, they were giving us the most difficult time with this legalizing this baby for her to become a U.S. citizen. But it finally happened about 3 or 4 years ago. And we've been together every minute. And this young lady, her name is Kenya. She's now 20 years old, and she just entered college a month or so ago. So people say, oh, you saved her life. No, she saved our life. That's it's a mutual admiration society, because she's brought so much joy and happiness to us. And yes, there came a time when we had to leave the island because we never thought we would leave the island. Who would want to leave a tropical paradise? But the political, everything political started changing, and they started killing. Um, it's very sad. They started killing journalists on the mainland, not my island. But after a while, they eventually killed 20 journalists, and I
Wow.
finally realized that they're trying to take over the country, and the way to do that is to get rid of the journalists that would rise up against them and write against them and report against them. So when I saw that, I said, "We got to go." And my wife didn't want to go. She had a spa. We were living a great life. But I said, "Honey, we have to go." And finally, she said, "Of course." And so we had to leave, in a terrible way. But we at least escaped with our lives. And we're here in the South Florida now, and where you are, and living a really good life. And everybody's happy. We have a dog. So we have a family of four.
So, Bruce, coming up to today, you do some profound broadcasts. Can you tell me how you got interested in it and why you do the different types of broadcasts that you do?
Well, I remember it was 1993, and I'd left show business, but show business was still such a big part of my life. I loved it. And I was so, so disappointed that it didn't work out for me. Very disappointed. So when I got back to South Florida, and I've been studying relationships, and I had opened up this room and learned so much about people, I started knocking on the door of some talk show hosts to see if they'd have me on as a guest. And they said, yes, sure. Hey, relationships, why not? It's a big thing for everybody. And I started guesting on a lot of shows, and people loved it. The audience loved it. The hosts loved it. They kept inviting me back. And then we had a terrific radio station right in Boca Raton called WNN, the Winners News Network. And this station was so different than other stations because they didn't play music, but they played 3 or 4 minute sound bites of all the revolutionary motivational speakers who had such incredible things to say. And you listen to the station and you're uplifted, and it was exciting. I said, boy, I want to have a show on that station. And you know what? I got one where I stayed for a couple of years, and I really got the bug. It's very difficult to stay on the radio too long because it's not like you're a star and someone's going to pay you to be on the radio these days. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to find sponsors, and it has to work out for the sponsors that they make some money while they pay for your programming. So after a while, it stopped running, started running out for us. But we also came into a time of something called podcasts, which is exactly what we're doing. And if you have the right tools, you can produce and host podcasts exactly how we're doing here. And it's my job, my goal to get the most interesting, uh, entertaining programming possible. So 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to take advantage of my background. We didn't talk about this yet. When I was out in LA the first time in the 80s, I represented 35 states. My life is, I've done a lot. I represented 35 stand up comedians who got very, very big in the 80s at the Improv and the Comedy Store. And some of the people I represented were Howie Mandel, the unknown comic, the guy who wore the bag over his head, and Paul Reiser and Bobby Slayton, and so many guys that it was really wonderful. But I had a situation. My mom passed on rather suddenly, and show business didn't hold the same appeal for me. And I left and went back to New York, where I had some production jobs, and it was okay. But after about 5 years, I left for Florida, and that's basically I stayed there for the next 8 years, and that's where I got involved with radio. But to bring it back to now, 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to see if some of those comedians would do shows with me. And I still was connected to many of them on Facebook. And I'd send them a note and I'd say, hey, I'm doing a show called 80s Golden Age of Comedy. Would you like to be a guest on it? Well, 60 comedians later, I was doing this and having a fantastic time reconnecting with all these comedians. And I even had on a guy named Lee Steinberg, who was known around the world as the real Jerry Maguire. And he is the biggest sports agent in the world. And he's representing Patrick Mahomes and all the top quarterbacks over the last 20 years. And he came on the show. We did an hour together. I also interviewed one of the top personal managers and producers out in Hollywood, and he spent an hour with me. So I had a great, great show. And then that came to an end, and I started saying, well, what kind of shows do I want to do now? And I'm doing 3 or 4 shows now, and one of the great ones is with you, Carole.
Thank you. Well, your life has been exciting. Um, Tell me about the work that you're doing that is helping singles in our community.
Well, Carole, thank you for asking about that because it's an issue that I hold very close to my heart. Because Lauren and I, we notice how many of her friends and how many people out there are alone. And I'm not going to say alone and lonely because there's plenty of people that are fine being alone, or so they say. But I know that most people would like to find someone that they can get along with, to spend time with, to go to the movies with, to go to the beach with, and as you said earlier, go to dinner with. Uh, Everybody wants that. And when you don't have that, there is a little bit of a lonely space. And as people get even older, it gets maybe even a little scarier to be alone and not have anybody there with you. And I really feel so strongly about my relationship with Lauren because we've been together we just had a celebration, an anniversary celebration. It's almost like 20, we're together 27 or 28 years. And it's been great because we're there for each other. Now, why did I choose speed dating? Speed dating, when it's done right, when it's done in a good way, can be fantastic. Where else can you meet 20 or 25 interesting, attractive people in one night? Now, don't get me wrong. Not everybody who you meet is going to be, you're going to be attracted to and you're going to find interesting. The good news is that every 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll have to decide depending on how many people come, every 2 or 3 minutes, the man on the outside of the circle moves on to the next lady. So even if you are sitting in front, find yourself sitting in front of someone who you have absolutely no interest in, hey, still get to know them. Everybody has a lot to offer, especially if they feel good enough about themselves to come to an event like this. And you know what, Carole? They might have a friend who just might be perfect for you. So be kind and be friendly to everyone. And you're going to meet every 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to meet someone. I suggest you bring some sort of way to a card, even if it's handwritten. And maybe you might give out your handwritten email, not necessarily a telephone number, but maybe your handwritten email to maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people. If you find 2 or 3 or 4 people at a speed dating event, that's fantastic. Where are you going to find 2 or 3 or 4 people in 5 years that you find interesting? And then it's not about dating them that night. It's about exchanging information and having the man call the woman, which I strongly suggest happens. Women don't call the man, let the man call you. We can explain more about that another time. And that's when you get to know each other better. That's when you can make time to go to a movie, go to dinner, go to the beach, go and to an event that he might not want to go alone to, and you might not want to go to alone to. But tell people what you want, and that's what these events for. So earlier in the year, I had over 80 people show up at a singles speed dating event. And it was pretty hard to organize 80 people, but I did it. And everybody seemed very, very happy. What that told me was there's a tremendous need for it. I know there's a tremendous need for people to get together and to meet other people. Doesn't have to be looking just for romance, but like you said, to make friends, to find other interesting people. And that's really what it's about. North Palm Beach County needs more activities. And listen, I'm going to do that. I'm organizing events 55 to 75. I don't know how successful I'll be at 35 to 55 because there's a tremendous reaction to this event for 55 to 75. At this point, I have more than enough women, and I'm gaining many men, and I haven't even tapped some of my other marketing ways to attract men. We're looking for firemen to be there and for accountants to be there, which are mostly men, and I haven't even tapped into those sources yet. So they want to be there, and it's a matter of contacting me and putting your name on the waiting list. And if it doesn't happen at this event, I'm for sure going to have events either monthly or every 2 or 3 weeks. There's 3 locations right off the bat that I'll be doing this at. The first event is going to be on March 20th, and it's going to be in Palm Beach Gardens. And that's going to be, and you'll know, I'll put the information right on the bottom here. And it's going to be a wonderful event at a great restaurant at the corner of Military and Northlake. And the same restaurant has 2 other locations that are all ready and waiting for this event to be good. And then we can go right into doing these events at these other locations just to start. And we could do other events. We could do a disco night. We can do speed business networking events. There's so much that we can do, and we're off to a great start. I'm so glad to be able to do these projects and be somewhat successful at it already from the reaction that we're getting. So the first event, March 20th, contact me if you want to go. And some of you will have to contact me and be put on the mailing list, the wait list. We need a few more men, but I know there's going to be a lot more very, very soon. So that's really it. It's going to be the first of many events. And I would love for you to contact me so that you can be on a mailing list. And you'll be the first to know in the future when I'm doing an event. So thank you so much for asking that question. I know it was pretty long-winded answer, but I feel so passionate about helping single people. Of course, I'm married. Lauren and I have been together for so many years, but I still feel the same passion for helping single people find someone so they can spend the rest of their lives with a nice person. Isn't about hot sex like it was for me in my 20s and teens. It's not about that at all. It's about raising your vibration and connecting with people up here from the heart, communication, third eye, crown chakra, instead of down here in these lower chakras. That's what relationships are about as we get older. So I also look forward to being there for anyone watching that wants relationship coaching. I could do one-on-one relationship coaching. I can do group coaching live and in person, or I can do one-on-one relationship coaching on Zoom or one in a group on Zoom. It's all what you ask for, and we can get started with that right away. So thank you again, Carole, for asking me that question. I really appreciate it. I hold it so close to my heart to helping single people.
Wonderful. Well, this has been an interesting show because I'm talking with my co-host, Bruce Starr, who has so many different dimensions of work in his journey and his quest on life. So kudos to you. You're opening up the singles world for all of us.
I never thought I would ever. I could write books. I've written 5 books, and they're all
Good for you.
spectacular. 5 books. One of them was about my life story. Kind of highlighting everything I've told you and a lot more. Um, but these two, I never thought I would actually publish a book, see a book in writing. I don't know, maybe it's my lower self-esteem when it came to this, and everybody's dealing with lower self-esteem in some aspects of their life at every moment. But I actually went ahead and after years and years of editing and re-editing and editing, I actually published 2 books with Amazon. And I told you about these 2 books. So now the challenge is getting people to know about these books because only half the battle is printing it. The other half of the challenge is getting people to read it. And that's another reason why I do these shows, because you never know who's going to be watching a show like this. Maybe a talent agent is watching a show like this. Maybe a literary agent or a publisher is eventually going to want to watch a show like this and say, wow, what 2 great book ideas this guy has. So you just never know. And so I keep putting good things out there. I'm also teaching. I've been teaching in some private schools and also substitute teaching. And people say, substitute teaching, that's so hard. It is. But the schools that I teach at, the kids love me. I love the kids. And I think it's very, very important that the kids have in their view a, a strong masculine, positive figure in front of them because so many of these kids don't have a father in their family. So I'm glad to be that person for these kids. And that's what keeps me going back there every day because I don't see myself as a substitute teacher. These kids every day say, why don't you be our teacher? Why don't you be our teacher? I say, I'm not a teacher. Yes, you are. You're the best teacher. I said, I'm really not a teacher. And I don't see myself being a teacher. And I know if something major in my life comes up that I really want to do, I don't want to walk away from kids if I'm their full-time teacher. But if I'm a substitute teacher and I stop coming back, they may or may not miss me. So that's the way my thinking is.
So we're going to wrap up this show, and we have started a program called The Quest, which is a metaphysical journey, a spiritual journey, and how a person can use all the tools available to them. Imagination, Einstein said, is even more important than our logical mind. And so we're going on an adventure and a quest where we invite the leading stars in different fields, or we teach on that show how you can use your skills. And I'm so excited about that and so happy that you wanted to do the podcast. You waited for a year for me, and now I'm ready to go and totally excited about our new venture. And it's been so much fun interviewing you. Um, I want to learn more about you, and we'll do this show again when we
Thank you.
can.
Thank you, Carol. I've learned so much from you in ways that I had no idea I would learn from you. And I look forward to expanding what we do on that show and reaching a great big audience eventually. And thank you so much for even suggesting that you interview me. I'm thrilled. I never would have come up with that suggestion myself.
Yeah, I like to brag about other people. Like, I like winners. You and the winners radio station. That radio station was incredible. What a coup.
Oh, that was fantastic. And I was
Yeah,
so honored to be on that station with all the best motivational speakers. It was fantastic. So thanks for having me on the show.
you're welcome. Bye bye.